What is going on, guys? Today I have a Tesla related video for you, and we're going to talk about Robotaxi, Tesla and autonomy, and so let's get into this thing. First of all, I'm Malachi Greb, CEO of Elite Automation, Elite Properties, and an investor in Tesla. I'm still not quite going yet this morning. You see, I look kind of tired, but I was on the car ride to the gym earlier today, and just kind of like thinking about things, and had like I don't know, not necessarily just an epiphany, but I guess that's the best word for it is like an epiphany of where Tesla's going to go out with autonomy. And I made a really long video. Like, if you want to go back and watch that video, like I posted it a couple weeks ago, but it was like 45 something minutes long, talking about autonomy and autonomy first vehicles. But part of what made me like think about this is I'm kind of thinking about like where Tesla's at right now and what the future of Tesla looks like over the next few months, 6 months, 1 year, a couple years, and what that means, like as an investor, how the company's going to execute, and the thing that like came back to my mind is Elon saying that we might not get the Model Y L here in the U.S. And I also re-mentioned this again in my other video, which I think it goes a lot more in depth in the future of autonomy. Whereas this video, I kind of want to talk more about the roadmap of Tesla and kind of like brainstorm out some different things of how Tesla might go about executing, autonomy. And so, like, the thing came back is like Elon was saying, like, we're not going to get the Model Y L in the U.S. due to autonomy in the U.S. And so I was just thinking, like, okay, with Robotaxi, one thing that's against that is that it seems to do great everywhere. Like, they just launched it in like Austin, and somebody posted something of like they did like thousands of miles in FSD already, and that was literally with just launching Austin like literally like a month ago. I don't even think it's been a month, right? So FSD just went active and has never been active in that state, and now it's active and it's just working, and as soon as they turned it on with China with no real world data or limited amount of real world data, it was able to just work in China, and that's significant. It's not just significant that they can just turn it on in new states and stuff like that, but it really just showcases where FSD's at and its ability to just handle roads, handle new environments, and its ability to deploy it more quickly. And a lot of people have talked about these types of things, but I'm just thinking like, okay, for the Model Y and the Model Y L, why would it not come to the U.S.? And so I'm going to go into some of the planning part of things. So the only reason I would see that the Model Y L is not just a couple months behind China's Model Y L is because Tesla wanted to test the demand, first of all, of that vehicle and just make sure that it's a vehicle that has demand, people want to buy it, and it's not going to just flop. Secondly, they wanted to improve things on the engineering side. So, coming from like my background in automation and like with like the weld fixtures and things that we do for automotive, right? There's a lot of change orders that go into it. Like we did a project last year that it was like a $3 million project, and just that $3 million project had like $300,000 worth of like change orders, and not from us, but like just because the customer changed the design or changed something after they decided they wanted to move it to another fixture, right? So there's a lot of changes as you're developing that product. So, for a company like Tesla that wants to be as efficient as possible, they might have said, okay, well, instead of us producing both these lines simultaneously, let's test it out in China. Let's go ahead and deploy the manufacturing system, they pretty much probably most likely modify the existing Model Y line for the new Model Y L. However, there's going to be things that have definitely changed. Like, definitively, your body panels have changed, your structure changed, Probably maybe even your battery packs may have changed. And if your battery pack itself didn't change, then the container that the battery pack is in, meaning the structure around the battery pack, had to have changed, because now you just have a totally bigger structure, not by a lot, but 6 inches, but it's still a modification, right? And Tesla's smart, so they probably try to keep as many like similarities and like locator points and stuff like that the same as possible. But no matter what, there's going to be changes. Like the going back to like the stampings of like the BIW, the shell of the vehicle. Those stampings have to be different stampings altogether, because you can't stamp a different product. The die that you use to stamp has to be a completely different die. That's just how it works. But there's going to be a lot of other things that had to have changed. All your plastics, so all your plastic interior pieces, they're elongated. At least every one of them that is elongated now has to have a new mold made for it. And so a couple of things might happen. Before I get into a couple things, so they might have just like let's launch in China. Let's see all engineering changes that we need to make. Let it run for 6 months, a year, or whatever. Make all the changes we want to make, optimize the line as much as possible, then let's take that and deploy that in the United States. And that's also kind of a safer thing, because a country like China will be cheaper to execute work in, meaning if they had to have contractors come on site and modify fixturing and modify just whatever parts of the line, conveyors, reposition things, whatever it is that they want to do with that system, it will be a lot cheaper to do that in China than it would to do that in the U.S. And then on top of that, you have double expenses if you in tandem are making changes on two separate lines. Whereas like if you just make the changes on one line and then design the new line to be updated with all the new findings that you found over the past 6 months to a year of running manufacturing of the Model Y in China. So now you take all those learnings and you don't have any of those losses whenever you go to deploy that in the United States. And again, you were able to find those changes at a lower cost, because you're able to do that in China, where labor rates and stuff like that are a lot cheaper than the U.S. versus like in the U.S. like you have a contractor that's coming out to look at stuff like that. I mean, you're talking $100+ an hour to have contractors out and analyzing, engineering the manufacturing line, and even just employees themselves that are working directly at Tesla. A $30 an hour employee versus like a $10 an hour employee. I don't know how much they actually make in China. I don't know their labor market. I know like definitely like countries like India and stuff like that. I mean, it'd definitely be like $8 an hour or something like that. Maybe even probably less. Probably like $5 an hour or $3 an hour for like a manufacturer. Like a line operator or whatever. Now, engineer would definitely be, higher than that, but $10, $15 an hour, something like that. I mean, it's not a lot. So China probably has a very relative cost to their employment, to their laborers. So that's a big reason why I see that Tesla would have held off from doing the Model Y versus just being like a month or two behind the Model Y L, versus just being a month or two behind China, is because they want to capture all those things, right? They want to test the demand. They want to capture any of those engineering expenses, rework expenses in the first system, versus duplicating both of them in at the same time. And then we'll just deploy these staggered. So let China have it a year ahead of time, then let the US have it a year later. And so if they did decide to do that, that might make sense, where the plan changed. Initially, that was the plan. We'll wait 1 year, then we'll deploy it in the US, right? We'll start building out some of the main well, actually, they don't have to build out any of the main equipments of that system, because it's already the Model Y system. So they don't even really have to build that out. And why don't they have to build that out? Because it's already producing the Model Y. Those main equipments are most likely not going to change. Now, there could be changes in there that are more significant to the capital equipment. Like, let's say, for instance, if you had like some locator, something on servos, and maybe just the overall motion of it. It didn't have enough range to open up enough, and you so like you needed it to be able to open up more, so you had to mechanically change out that capital equipment for something that has the appropriate range or stroke or however you want to call it, travel distance. These are all different words you could use. But or not but if that was their original plan for them to wait the 1 year, and then they're like, you know what, we might be close enough with autonomy that like it doesn't even make sense for us to build the Model Y. And this takes me into another part of Tesla's plan. If this is the scenario, it's highly likely that Tesla is deep in the design phase of autonomy first vehicles. So we already know they have one autonomy first vehicle, which is the Robotaxi. Okay, and I didn't really explain very good what what autonomy first vehicle is. If this is like your first time watching this video, which means you may not be watching this video anymore because I didn't explain that. But autonomy first basically means that the vehicle will be designed with things like without steering wheels, without pedals. The seats may not even be facing in the same direction. The seats may be turned facing towards each other. It'll be designed more for a communal type of vehicle versus a commuting type of vehicle. It's just commute only. It's communal. You have a table in front of you and chairs on either side, and maybe even like some workspace setups and stuff like that. But I go really deep into that autonomy video if you want to get into that. I mean, it goes deep into it. I mean, yeah, even talk about having offices in your car and then way past that. So that's definitely a very interesting video. And I went really deep in that one. But it's highly likely they're very close to having vehicles designed to a point where they're manufacturing ready. Autonomy first vehicles. And we know for a fact, and we know for a fact that the Robotaxi is very close to getting manufactured. Like it's supposed to be I believe it's end of this year or beginning of next year. We're supposed to be manufacturing the Robotaxi, which is an autonomy first vehicle, and the other autonomy first vehicles might be right behind it. I think they're going to be very, very, very close behind it. I think they're I don't want to say they're done with design, but I want to say they're 90% done with design of a few different models of vehicles, right? So they came out with Robotaxi and the Robovan. I don't even know if the Robovan is that high of a priority. Maybe it is going to, we're going to hear something that it goes into manufacturing sooner than later. But I think before that, maybe before the Robovan, maybe not, that we're going to start having other autonomy first vehicles, and those are definitively going to be designed with the symmetries needed to be able to deploy the same vehicles down the same line, meaning your cybercab or whatever. I might have been saying Robotaxi this whole time. Your cybercab platform will then also be the same platform as Robovan. And you'd think they're such different vehicles. They are such different vehicles, but there's a lot of things where you can use the same locating points. If you just engineer your product to have the same what we call datum points, then you can locate off those same points, and then some of your other things are just moving parts around that. So a lot of times you have robot arms come in and hold your side panels, the body up, and then you have other robots come and do your spot welds. And whenever you have a system like that, it really doesn't matter the shape and size. Maybe you have to change out your robot toolings that actually hold the component, but even those can be automatic tool changer, where you can the robot can set down the whole entire tool, swap over to another tool, and then just switch over immediately, minutes, to being able to run a new part. And literally, you can engineer things to a level where you can do one Robovan one cybercab, one Robovan, one cybercab, one Robovan, one cybercab. You can do that. There's a lot of expense in doing that. Depending on like the setup of things. And generally, it's because things take up a lot of space. Like whenever you have like your operators and stuff like that, and you like have all your operator station stuff with different harnesses, different materials and stuff, and to have that for two different models of vehicles, that can be like a little bit of a challenge. Now, all the automated parts really are kind of no problem to just like hurry up and switch them over, and then kind of just keep going, even from part to part. I mean, you literally have like three different vehicles right behind each other, just like manufacturing them in that way. Now, that's not generally something you see in manufacturing. You generally see people do you see manufacturers do long runs of vehicles where they do 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, and then they'll switch over the variant, and then they'll run some variants of that one, or they'll run other minor variants. So they'll be like, okay, we're gonna run a total of 100,000. Here's 80,000 of the base model. We're gonna have 5,000 with red interior, 5,000 with white interior, right? And so that's how they'll plan that out. So that way they kind of switch over, not switch over the entire model of the vehicle, but switch over like different variants of the vehicle. And sometimes they also feed those in one by one, like meaning you could have like they are more real time, where you'll have a blue car, then a red car, then a blue car, then a black car, then you know what I mean? They switch things out like that. So like that some of the stuff's still somewhat common, and kind of like a build to order type of manufacturing philosophy. So a lot of automotive has adapted to some of that, but to go from major variant where you're running like I'll just take it to a Toyota, like you're running a Toyota RAV4, and the next thing you know, you're running a Toyota Camry right behind it. Like that's things that these other vehicle manufacturers are not doing whatsoever. And see, another thing that Tesla does that's different is their vehicles are pretty much the same across all their vehicles. Like your Model Y and your Model 3 are using like the same screens in the vehicle, the dashboard, all that's like basically the same. Steering wheels are the same, pedals are the same. Like, so whenever they could literally run like a Model 3 and a Model Y on the same line, no problem, and run them back to back and probably switch back and forth. And it's like minor changes, and or they could update their system to be adaptive to be able to accept these minor changes. And I'm getting way too deep into the manufacturing processes, but I'm just trying to help you understand like what's in the mind of these manufacturers, like when they're trying to manufacture a product. And so with the new autonomy first vehicles, they're going to be they're in the what they're calling the out of the box platform, where I think this is what they mean is they can like literally just build one vehicle and then right behind it build another vehicle, and basically have like the entire assembly line streamlined. And also too, one big thing in the past was you had like one single trunk line with some lines feeding into it. So now like Tesla's doing more of this thing of like, let's just feed a bunch of lines into one trunk line, and then you'll have kind of basically the vehicle manufactured in a lot shorter span. Meaning, what's the difference in that? Meaning I can start making a vehicle right now, and that same vehicle be completed in like, let's just say an hour or something like that. I'm not sure exactly like the takt time from the beginning start of a vehicle to the end of a vehicle. Because like a lot of these manufacturers, you have like a 1 minute takt time, meaning it's like 1 minute per vehicle, boom, 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 boom. But that doesn't mean it takes 1 minute from the start of that vehicle to the end of that vehicle. It takes hours to build that vehicle still. And Tesla, with that approach, instead of taking hours to build a single vehicle from the start of production that day, can literally like go from like this is the very start of the line to that vehicle is now done in 30 minutes, because they're building multiple parts of the vehicle over here on these different lines together and then bringing them all together. This is like the same marriage style of like BIW, where you bring in different side bodies and bring in all these different BIW parts before doing the welding process. But now they're bringing in entire parts of the vehicle, the rear of the vehicle, the front of the vehicle, all these different things, right? And then so with that autonomy first, they can design all the vehicles on that platform. And it doesn't even have to be autonomy first, by the way, to have this type of platform, but they're going to design those vehicles in that manner, so that way basically every vehicle can run down that same manufacturing line. And then it becomes more of a matter of, instead of re-engineering the manufacturing line all the time, we take whatever we learned from the last one and we just build it again, and we just build it again, and we just build it again. And now that system itself might be more expensive in like the procurement items because maybe it has servos versus like just some hard stop locators or whatever. But then that system is now future proofed where you can literally run that system for the next 100 years, 200 years, and that doesn't shift in its abilities because you've designed it to be so advanced and so adaptive that you don't have the need to make the changes to the system because it's an adaptive system. It can adjust in so many different sizes and shapes and be able to accommodate that. And something like a Robovan, one of the other vehicles that might come out is like a mini Robovan, which would be more like the minivan for individuals that have kids and stuff like that. And like that's a very sought after vehicle. One big demand that people have for Teslas is their family sized vehicles. Those people who have 3, 4, 5 kids really want that type of vehicle, and also people who do a lot of work want those bigger vehicles as well. Like for me, I just love big SUVs. Like I did a quick review on like the Model Y, the Model 3, and I would hand this down by the Model Y over the Model 3 because of the utility of it. Like being able to fold down all the seats and like use that back space for like whatever. Like we kind of use it as like workspace in the sense of like taking stuff to different properties or hauling tools out of town or like whatever it is that we're doing within our businesses and stuff like that. But just a bigger vehicle is going to appeal to even more people. And so you have that. You have like the cyber SUV would be another huge one that people would be interested in. But again, designing things in that autonomy first. Like we're probably not going to get a cyber SUV either. If there's already a Model Y L here and they're saying we may not even get the Model Y L, then we're probably not going to get a cyber SUV. And if they do make a cyber SUV, and I'll kind of get into that in a second. But okay, those are going to be for the late adopters, right? Tesla might make a few more variants of vehicles for late adopters, right? Because it's going to take people 5 to 10 years to say, okay, I want a Robotaxi. I'm going to take a Robotaxi. Either I don't need to own a vehicle or my vehicle has to be autonomous. Some people are going to be like very pushed back, and I want manual controls of the vehicle. And so for those who want the manual controls of the vehicle, and even I kind of want this, even though I'm super autonomy first, and I definitely want a vehicle that drives me, and my Tesla drives me all the time. I basically never ever drive unless I just want to have fun. But to have the ability to take control, and I'm okay with different types of controls. I don't need the physical steering wheel there. Like I made a comment on or a post or whatever on X, and I said, give me a PS5 steering wheel, R1 L1 for gas or whatever. I'll use X for gas, R1 L1 for gas or whatever. Gas and brake, reverse, whatever. I'm okay with that. That would suffice for me. And like a pedal, I can just throw it down there where it's like connects via Bluetooth or something like that. Even if that has to have a hardwired connection just due to latency and have a port that you can just plug right into, like a USB port. I mean, that would work. USB port, and then boom, I have my steering wheel and everything that I want. And if I even want to, I can switch it over to the right hand side, or I can drive it from the back seat, or drive it from anywhere in the vehicle or whatever. That'd be cool. I think a lot of people will still be okay with that, especially newer generations coming up. Like I made that comment too, that all the kids know what R2 and L2 means, right? That means like forward or reverse or brake or whatever. I'm actually out of video games, so I haven't played video games in a long time. Plus, I was more of a Black Ops guy, even though I did play all the Need for Speeds and stuff like that. Black Ops Zombies, to be specific. But yeah, I actually was ranking like top 1,000 in the world or something like that at one point in time. Pretty wild. And now I just don't even play video games. But yeah, I mean, I think that we might see some, I'll call them legacy vehicles created, with the steering wheel and pedals, some old school vehicles with steering wheels and pedals. We might see those being created still because there's going to be that lag of people wanting to adopt it. And I also think that will get people that just are even hesitant to say, oh yeah, I'll do that for sure. You know what I mean? I have the option to still drive my vehicle. Okay, cool. And that also accommodates like situations where the autonomy may not be absolutely ready for it, meaning like snow, heavy rain, um, these types of weather conditions where maybe the autonomy won't function. And so having that like kind of emergency backup to be able to throw in your steering wheel and boop 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 or whatever, um, to drive it yourself, I think it's unnecessary and very useful. I mean, like, what do you do? Like, they're doing a lot of these in down south right now. Like, what do you do when there's a hurricane? And you have like a hurricane scenario, and like all the vehicles are like, oh, we can't drive, we can't drive, we can't drive. And you have 200 vehicles to 1,000 vehicles out. They can't drive. That's a whole other thing they'll have to figure out. They'll probably have to teleoperate and pull them over to the side and all that good stuff. They'll have to figure out how to manage those things. But um, kind of go back and like summarize some of this. We may not get the Model YL because they might actually have autonomy. Now, I think we're just too close to get the Model YL. I think they're also like too close, meaning they've already designed it in China. Like, why would they not just deploy it in the U.S., especially if the actual physical changes, even if the physical changes are a few $1,000,000 to change over the line, the Model Y line is probably like $100+ million line, and so with that being said, a few $1,000,000, even $10 million is like 10% of the total asset uh, of that initial procurement, of that initial capital, right? So like, why not go ahead and milk it for some more sales? Now, the other thing that I'm I foresee is that the Model Y sales in the U.S. are still so good that they don't want to degrade those sales. Meaning, while the Model Y is hot, let's keep selling the Model Y. Once the Model Y starts to really ramp down, let's come out with the Model YL, right? And another thing is too, the U.S. tax credit is another big reason why they may not be mentioning the Model YL in the United States. Why? Because a couple things will happen. People will switch and buy the Model YL, right? They'll say, oh, well, I'll just go ahead and buy the Model YL instead of the Model Y. However, right now they're probably getting a huge ramp in Model Y in the take rate of it because of this incentive ending, right? It's the number one best selling vehicle. So one, you might create complexities and delivery times and all that. And plus, once you deliver a vehicle, it's kind of hard to cancel the vehicle, like to return it. And like, even if it's returnable after taking delivery, it becomes a lot harder to do that on just like a psychological basis. Like, after the human has the vehicle in their hands, like the likelihood, like if you look at the numbers, the data for somebody returning their vehicle after they have it in their hand is much less than like, I've ordered it, but then I canceled my order, right? And then either switched to something else or decided I didn't want it, right? So it's like, let's not mess with any of our production. They're probably going to let this tax incentive run out. They're probably going to deliver all those influx of vehicles, and then they're probably going to do Model YL in the U.S. if they're going to do it. If they're going to do it, that's what I project they will do. They will, again, let this incentive run out. They will deliver all those vehicles from the incentive, and then they will release the Model YL. And the reason why is because, let's say, for instance, we had this huge incentive spike, right? We had this huge incentive spike. Now they have to deliver on that spike to, they have to deliver on that spike, right? And you don't want anything messing up, the delivery of that spike, like introducing a new vehicle, right? Because even if they do introduce like a Model YL, they have to deliver that spike of sales in the U.S., which means if they did sell the Model YL, you're not going to be able to get it for probably 6 months anyway, because they're going to be manufacturing vehicles for this spike probably up until like end of December, maybe even January, and then you're going to re-spark the market with the Model YL when you release it later, by just introducing a new vehicle. So you're going to have that spike due to the tax credit ending. You're going to hold that spike because you got to deliver all those vehicles. Then, after you deliver all those vehicles, you have to, or then your sales are going to drop off, right? They're going to drop off just naturally because now you don't have that huge incentive to buy. You don't have that hard deadline to buy. Sales are going to start dropping off. Once they feel like they've dropped off to a certain point where, okay, we feel like we can fill that gap with a new Model Y L. I don't know what that number is. Maybe they're at 50% production rate, maybe at 70% production rate. And after they jump below that certain production rate, then they're going to allow the ability to, or not the ability, then they're going to release the Model Y L because it'll close that gap to keep that line at 100%. I don't say occupancy, that's for houses and house hospitality. At 100% run rate, basically. And so that's paramount for manufacturing and getting your capital utilization out of your equipment, is to ensure that system's running at its max capacity. You want that capital to be running at its max capacity. And so once they see a dip, and here's the other thing is like if after all these tax credit and things end, if it's still like a 90% efficiency, 95% not efficiency but run rate, they probably won't come out with a Model YL because it don't make sense. Like, it'd make more sense if we just built another line. But then if we build another line, then we're only going to run that one at 10 to 30% run rate because the Model YL probably is not going to sell as many as the regular Model Y. And then on top of that, you're going to do that, and then your Model Y normal sales are going to go down. So now you're going to be at that 70%, 60%, 50% run rate, because you launched this other line over here with this other variant of the vehicle that's very similar to the other variant. And so it becomes essentially a non-good investment because of the way that your sales are going to shift and the way your capital utilization is going to shift. And again, if people don't know what capital utilization is, to break it down a little bit more, it means that you bought this expensive machinery, again, for like $100-something million, and you need to use that machinery as much as possible. Because you can buy $100 million piece of machinery and let it sit and make no money from it, or you can keep it running at 100% and be making $100 million a year from it. So that's how these manufacturers are looking at the cost justifications of their systems and stuff. And so they got to keep that run rate going. Now, your Cybercab or whatever, I don't think that it's built on the same platform as like the Model Y and the 3 and stuff like that, where you can run the Model Y and like the Cybercab on the same line. There might have to be significant changes, and that's maybe one thing that they're doing with like this autonomy first and like these new generation of vehicles, is like, how do we take these vehicles and make sure they're designed in a way where we can run them all down this line. That's going to be extremely important moving forward. One, just because like Tesla and its efficiencies that it's after, like it wants to be like the most efficient, the most advanced, and that's the way they have to do it. Now, for like the Model X and S, I don't know if they're running down the same lines or not. And also too, like even if they weren't, and we were to look at that, it might not be worth it for them to make the design changes on the X and the S to make the X and S run down a Model Y line. It just may not be worth it, because they might have to completely go back to the drawing board on those vehicles, because like maybe some locator points that are there like are just not accessible on that older variant where they could ever match up with the Model Y. Just like something inherently different about those vehicles than your Model Ys and your Model 3s, and then going into your next generation of autonomy first vehicles, where they can be initially designed to have like the most interchangeability, and those systems being designed as like the most advanced systems. And again, they're going to this out of the box approach, which is more of that multi lines converging into a singular line, whereas like even I think like the Model Y and stuff like that like might have some instances of it. They'll definitely have some instances of it, but it won't be like full-fledged like they're talking about with the unboxed with these like, autonomy first vehicles and stuff like that. And it isn't necessarily that it has to be autonomy first to have that unboxed method, but Tesla's going to go autonomy first because autonomy first, we're there. You know what I mean? Like, and this is what I made in my X post. If version 14 can handle everything, we are there. There's no arguability there. I think it's just going to be a matter of validation at that point. We're going to validate from city to city to city, all the major cities first. After the major cities are validated, then they're going to go to other minor cities and validate. And one of the things that I would like to see them do if they're going to execute in a city by city validation, I think that they need to validate autonomously. I think that with like version 14, it will be safe enough they can validate autonomously. What does that mean? That means that they can have all their hardware equipped to it for validation, and then just tell that vehicle like go drive around Evansville, Indiana, map it out where it'll go. Evansville, Indiana is where I'm located. That's why I use that example. But in Evansville, Indiana, we're going to be later in the rollout because we have like a population of like 300,000. So like, we're like the third biggest city in Indiana, and that doesn't even count like sub cities of like bigger cities like Indianapolis and stuff like that. So like they have so many smaller sub cities that make that area just massive up there. I've been doing some studying, and they have like 10x the amount of economics that we do. They basically do like 10 times the amount of revenue than what Evansville does. That just like give you size comparison in the like economics of those types of cities versus like Evansville. So like, and then you have even smaller cities than Evansville that need to be validated and stuff. So like to validate every single little tiny city, I think they should validate every single city, but they should just validate autonomously, right? Let your little validation vehicles run around and validate autonomously. Don't make it usable to the public. Don't even let me use it. Other than my supervised version of it, don't let anybody use Robotaxi. Just let the validation vehicles run around. And they can even do things like run around at nighttime whenever the roads are clear. There's like nobody on the road to increase that safety metric. What is the least traveled time, on these roads? 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 1 a.m. They might be contesting with drunk people, but if there's an accident, the drunk person should be the liability. So, Tesla won't have to worry about the liability on that side of things. But yeah, then just, testing during the day to, see how it does with the traffic. First is like validate just like geographically, like everything's okay. Roads are where they're supposed to be. Anything you can identify in between them, like potholes and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of going into a whole other topic of vehicle, and I'm kind of just talking about some more of the planning and how they need to execute and roll out the Robotaxi and make sure that it gets deployed into other cities. One thing as a Tesla investor that I don't want to see happen is Tesla deploy this into major cities and then take like another year or two to deploy it in the rest of the nation, in the rest of the United States. I want to see them continue to roll it out. And why would they not keep rolling it out? Maybe because operationally they need to figure things out. So they launch in these big cities, and now they have hundreds of thousands of vehicles on the road, and so they got to service these and figure out how they're going to do things. And so they might decide to pull back and hold off for a second to like kind of rebalance out. Like say for instance when I'm doing like property investment stuff, we'll buy a few properties or something, and then we're going to hold off. And then we're just settle out. We have money, or we can still continue to invest in other properties and stuff like that, and we have the capacity to, but it's like hold out, Maybe let's do some further renovations that we didn't initially do. Let's do some further decor that we didn't originally do, landscaping, things like that we didn't originally do on our properties to kind of like increase that value of that property before like moving on into the next property and just kind of keep rolling. So it's like kind of rebase back out, level everything out, make sure that everything's good, smooth. Are we good, guys? Okay, we're good. Okay, now we can move on to our next phases of our rollouts. And so that's That's one thing that I'm concerned. I don't want to see them do. I want to see them, make sure they validate. And I think they should validate every inch of the United States. I don't care whatever they got to deploy 100 vehicles, 200 vehicles, 600 vehicles for just validation. Just deploy all those vehicles where they're just running around validation like little roaches, like little roaches just all over everywhere validating, and they just stay validating. They don't even stop validating. You know what I mean? Just let them keep validating. Where every single city has its own validation vehicles towards validating and reconfirming the data and checking to see if there's any road changes and just these types of things. But I don't think that Tesla will hold out and slow things down unless they run into operational complications. But yeah, I'm going to end this video here. We're 40 minutes in. If you stuck around to the end, I definitely appreciate you. Hopefully it was valuable enough. If you're here right now, then it must have been valuable enough because you're here 40 minutes later. But yeah, so if it was that valuable, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for other videos like this. I also do other entrepreneurial related videos, whether it's property investment videos and Tesla investment and kind of future of Tesla and all that good stuff. But yeah, thanks for sticking around, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.